Welcome, and it's my pleasure to introduce Nick Sanna, founder of the FAIR Institute, and Dave Burg, America's Cybersecurity Leader at EY. Nick founded the FAIR Institute in 2016 as an expert nonprofit organization due to a growing demand to expand the FAIR community. The idea was to create a forum for learning about FAIR and developing and sharing innovative best practices, and serve as a platform for networking for peers. So I hope we're able to do a lot of networking and learning here today. Dave Burg serves as EY's America Cyber Risk Leader. In this role, he assists clients in reactive and proactive consulting capacities involving deployment of information technology solutions for their use. So I want to welcome Dave and Nick.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbie. Thank you, Sunil. I'm going to go first, and Dave is going to follow me. But great pleasure to be here. This feels like almost pre-COVID. Remember the last big conference we had before COVID? It was a room almost as full as this one. And this is like 50% increase compared to last year. So it tells us about what's happening in the marketplace. And I think you're also privileged that you're going to get a presentation from a human being. This is not an artificial intelligence-driven presentation, but there is a ChatGPT joke. So I asked the ChatGPT, why did the FAIR Institute organize FAIRCon at the Fairmont Hotel? And the answer is that because we wanted everybody to feel fairly comfortable while discussing fairly complex problems like, cyber risk and AI risk. And so that's what GPT gives us in terms of an answer. But jokes apart, I think that I really love this conference because, not just because, we started it, but it has been a future-shaping conference. We always knew it, but we didn't dare to say it in the past. But I think we can dare to say it now because we've seen the conference really shaping the best practices in risk management over the years. I remember when we started, it was understood in the marketplace that you couldn't possibly, assess cyber risk and quantify it in ways like other forms of risk. And here we are, many years later, we're debating about how to scale it, how to accelerate it, how to expand the use cases. And that's thanks to us as a community. We've shown the way. This is a community of change makers. People have been the early adopters, and now we are the examples for the rest of the industry to follow. And I think that every year we stretch the limits of what's possible, and this is going to be one of those years. And I think it's very significant this year because there are, I think, 4 key developments that we need to address as an institute, as a community. The first one is new regulations. I remember I was speaking with one of my buddies here, Christoph, this morning from Europe. Is telling me, Nick, something is happening here. Remember a few years ago, we said some companies will adopt best practices that the FAIR Institute is advocating because they know it's key to their competitive advantage. But the bulk of the market will follow when they have to. When the regulation will tell me you need to do best practices, otherwise you're going to let your customers, your employees, and your investors down. And so I think this is what's happening. And I think that with the advent in the States of the SEC rule in cybersecurity, the NIST and DORA rules in Europe and Australia's public company ruling as well, I think this is starting to happen. And I think this is really a confirmation of the policies we've been advocating for many years to move from a compliance-only approach to cybersecurity that served us up to a certain point but didn't really solve the problem, to a risk-based approach, to cybersecurity, where we have a fighting chance to protecting what really matters. And because we know that when I speak to many agencies here, many organizations, tell me compliance only, it's a losing battle. The findings we get every day exceed the number of things we can fix. So that doesn't work in terms of keeping us safe. We really need to have ways to really focus on what matters. And this is what model like FAIR really enables you to do. And so I think it's a time of big change here in the States, a focus on the States. And we're going to have a very important, panel tomorrow with the chief enforcer of the SEC on stage. We're going to debate with CISO and some legal counsels and board practice leaders on how to implement the rule. This has been making waves. I know that a lot of CISOs are very anxious about this rule. what it means for them, for their organization. But I think if we do this correctly, this can become a forcing function for best practices. We know, I think I don't need to teach you what the rule talks about, just in brief summary. The rule requires companies to disclose their cyber risk management practices and to, on an annual basis, disclose their top cyber risk, and when incidents hits within 72 hours from detection of materiality or assessment of materiality, to report this incident to the SEC. But it's interesting to see, I picked here a quote here, and I'm going to read it. And so, the rule requires registrants to disclose any cybersecurity incident they determine to be material, and to describe the material aspects of the incident's nature, scope, and timing, as well as its material impact or reasonably likely material impact on the registrants. If you notice, there's one word that comes up 4 times. That word starts with an M, and it's the word material. And when we saw this, a lot of our members came to us and say, what does material mean? How you define it? How you measure it? Well, this is something we as an institute are taking on as a challenge and want to provide a help to the industry to both defining and measuring it. And we'll cover this more in a specific session during the conference. So, and also some people told us, it's like, well, the SEC says that this disclosures can be qualitative and quantitative. How do you square that? Well, one way you square that is like, even if at the beginning of an investigation of an incident, you may report on the incident in qualitative terms, if those things materialize, those risks materialize, they're going to become quantitative. As an example, if sensitive personal data is exfiltrated as part of an incident, you may disclose in your 8K form that you run the risk of a lawsuit settlement at some point. Well, guess what? When somebody files a lawsuit, the probability of that becoming a quantitative event for your company increases. The data settlement is done, it is a quantitative event. So when they say this is both a qualitative and quantitative, think about this in the spectrum and how fast you want to be transparent about what the possible consequences are for your company and your shareholders. So we'll speak more about this tomorrow, and so tune in on the panel of the CC itself, and there is also a great session on materiality tomorrow. And this is not just limited to US. We have several European members here in the audience. This is hitting Europe too, with a little bit of a lag. We have the Network and Information Security Directive from the EU coming to effect. It has been approved by the European Commission. Every state in every country in the European Union has until October 24 to transpose it into law. And as part of those directives, they also have a requirement of incident reporting, that is very similar to what the SEC is requiring in the States, and you can see an excerpt here on screen. And even more stringent for banks with a DORA regulation. So that's the first development here. I think this is going to be a big forcing function that will bring what we're doing here at the FAIR Institute to the forefront, and you can become those change agents and solution providers for your own organizations. The second key development now in industry that we want to focus on this year is what Sunil already talked about, the advent of generative AI. Gartner defines generative AI as technologies, of a certain type of artificial intelligence that can generate derived versions of content, strategies, design, and methods by learning from large repositories of source content. And many companies are leveraging this. And we have 60%, a survey by the Shared Assessment and Ponemon says that 60% CIOs are currently experimenting, in many cases in production, with the gains that generative AI can bring to the company. So while they're experimenting, we also have a bunch of reaction from organization. You have some organization, I know some organization, especially in government, who has said they blocked access to any tool that can do generative AI because they want to take any risk until they understand it fully. On the other side, there's other companies saying, you know what, I'm going to gain competitive advantage, but taking into consideration those productivity gains and delivering new services. I know when I book my travel, probably there is a chat box interacting with me, there's leveraging this, and the company's already doing that. And so how do we help both companies take advantage of these potential benefits without running into trouble? That's another question that our member is posing to us. No wonder yesterday we had a session, a training session that focused on this, and we have 40% of our session at the FAIR conference this year focused on understanding, assessing, and mitigating AI risk, and so tune in on those. So second trend we are willing to address head on. The third one is, third development is third-party risk. Third-party risk has been on the agenda in our industry for a long time, and it remains a big problem. And it's not surprising because apparently over 2/3 of organizations still do not monitor the cybersecurity and privacy practices of their third-party vendors. 2/3. You know me, one of those organizations, but many of your peer organizations are not doing a great job at it. And so that is a problem because as many companies are continuing to focus on digital transformation initiatives and shifting to the cloud, they are turning more and more to third-party vendors to increase efficiency, innovation, and competitive advantage. And so, oftentimes, as we know, many of these third parties are exploited as a backdoor into your company's system and getting into breaches. You know, the most notable ones this year have been T-Mobile, which have seen in January a data breach that exposed the personal information of 40 million customers. And this occurred when hackers gained access to the company's system through a third-party vendor. You know, AT&T lost 9 million, records, later this year. And the most recent one is the mass hack of the file transfer to Move IT that impacted more than 200 organizations, and we're still counting. And so that's something that I think is coming to the front to the point where regulators are taking notice. And it's interesting that even in the SEC rule, while the disclosure requirements are drafted relatively broadly in general, when it comes to, there's a particular area in which they require specific disclosure, which is third party. And the SEC clearly states that companies should disclose whether they have processes to oversee and identify such risk from cybersecurity threats associated with its use of any third-party service provider. So another theme that if we don't have our act together, we need to get on it right away. And as an institute, we want to look into how to best model and help companies assess it. And the fourth one is consolidation and roadmap acceleration in our particular field of risk analysis. And this has been driven by consolidation of CRQ pioneers, cyber risk quantification pioneers. They have joined forces to leverage each other's complementary capabilities. And the most notable example is the combination of RiskLens, which pioneered the industry, and Safe Security. By the way, full disclosure, I've been a main stakeholder and driver in this transaction. But what is happening, I think, as a major industry as a consequence of this and other similar events is that the CRQ market is, accelerating and moving from a modus operandi that went from manual, more subject matter expert, driven estimates, subjective in some cases, point-in-time assessments, to more automated, continuous, real-time assessments, especially when applying FAIR. And that's a big thing, because as an industry, we always scored great points for FAIR in terms of the rigor of the analysis by factoring in all the elements that make up risk and underquantified. But oftentimes it suffered a criticism of it's hard to scale if you use it in spreadsheets or in first-generation CRQ tools. So there's a new generation of tools, a second generation of tools that allow you to use ODAL and able to do analysis at the speed you want, at the level of automation and accuracy of data that your analysis will require. So that's a major development. So being able to put FAIR and scale and automation in the same sentence, it's a major new development in the industry. And it's also notable that Forrester Research started covering the CRQ space. I see Cody Scott there, the main analyst for the space there, who was the author of their first new wave, and he will be presenting on the state of the market later tomorrow. So what does this mean in terms of the mission of the Institute? So 4 major developments, and I think this, how are we responding? I think we're responding by undergoing the most profound transformation since I started the Institute. And this transformation has to do with pushing a research agenda, moving from an organization that used to be an organization that networking, sharing of best practices, helping one another in the industry to advance the industry, But more and more, we got the request from our members to accelerate the research into new models, into new ways of assessing and measuring risk for new emerging risks. And we're going to take this very seriously. And if you look at this is coming out from our new website that we just launched, is in process of being finalized as well. It says, look at the About Us. The FAIR Institute is a research-driven, key word here, it's a new thing, not-for-profit organization dedicated to advancing the discipline of cyber and operational risk management through 3 missions: education, standards development, and collaboration. And so you see the evolution there. And our agenda for the next year is going to heavily focus on that. And we'll respond by publishing a new set of standards. You're going to see FAIR becoming plural, no longer just a standard taxonomy for basic definition of risk and basic measurement risk at the highest level of factors, but we're now double-clicking on those factors and coming up with ancillary standards which allow you to do your jobs better and analyze, risk in more thorough ways. And we'll follow up with the education and certification capabilities to be proficient in those. I know that yesterday, we had launched a little while ago FAIRCON as a new standard, going to say, by the Institute, and yesterday we had a class, and so expect more of those initiatives to see the light of day at the FAIR Institute. And so more specifically, we said a family of standards. We had released a year and a half ago FAIRCON, which was the first industry analytics model for assessing the effectiveness of controls as it relates to the impact on risk. First in the industry, and we haven't seen any similar model emerge yet, and so tells us the bar it's set for the industry. We just released in August, a couple of months ago, the FAIR materiality assessment model in response to the SEC rule and in response to the question of our members, how you define materiality. So this is a new model that it is really spells out the taxonomy, drills down deeper into the factors make up loss in FAIR, and they will continue to be developed over time as well. And then we're working already on the next models. The agenda includes, research on modeling third-party risk. It's a big problem. We probably solved it at a shallow level. We want to really solve the problem at a very detailed level in AI. How do you assess AI risk and using a standard approach? And you'll see there the line continues with starting work groups to help figure out how to model cyber insurance underwriting and so on. So you'll see here FAIR is plural. That's the news of the day, and we really encourage our members to study those models and participate in extending them and in enriching their applications. And the way we're going to do it is also by putting together risk research boards at the Institute. So we're calling now corporate members to rise up and support the Institute by supporting the research agenda. And we are forming research advisory groups of the best in each industry, in vertically oriented, in some key industries to begin with, as you can see on the screen here, so they can help drive the research agenda and validate the findings and the new standards as they come before it's released to the general public. And as an example, the latest corporate member, happy to announce it's Victoria's Secret. I don't know if the CISO is here in the room. Mark, you're there. So Mark Tomello, why don't you stand up? Thank you for your sponsorship, Victoria's Secret to Institute. And also, he's joining also as a new board member representing the retail sector at the Institute. So very, very happy about that and your support. And so if you're interested about a corporate membership, see me or Luke, during the breaks or after the conference. Happy to tell you more about the privileges and the membership that come with it. But what does this lead us all to? The ultimate goal is to fulfill this plea from the industry. Over the years, and this call has been accelerating lately, people are saying, and I hear it all the time when I read it also in the press, we need a set of general accepted accounting practices for cyber risk. We need to speak the same language. Me CISO or me risk officer, I need to have the same framework that gets me along with my legal counsel, who needs to disclose now our cyber risk to some authorities, to my CFO when we're doing budgeting, for our cybersecurity budget, with the risk analysts who are, tasked with modeling this, And with the audit and risk committees at the board who are tasked to oversee risk. We need to have one same framework, one same taxonomy, one same measurement model where we can evaluate and manage and cyber risk. And this is what we aim to do at FAIR, and I think FAIR is really establishing itself as such general accepted practice for cyber risk industry, not just because some institute says so, but because of the validation that also you all provide. And on that note, also, I'm going to finish with a couple of announcements. The first one is this morning, and I'm asking people in the back to bring out the website. We released a new resource, information resource called "How Material Is That Hack?" If you go on your cell phones, and I'll give you permission to do it now, if you go at howmaterialisThatHack.org, you'll get access to the website. And this website, its mission is to inform the industry about the possibility, about the fact that it's possible to assess materiality of cyber incidents using a model like FAIR Materiality Assessment, or FAIR-MAM. And we'll do it by looking at recently disclosed incidents and understanding the factors that the companies are worried about, and very quickly, almost like in a rapid incident reporting response tool, we'll provide an estimate, on the losses that this company can incur, which is going to give them an idea of materiality. Very powerful tool. If I can have the, if you can click on one of those boxes, you can see here and scroll down slowly. We're gonna be on the record to project estimated losses if you can go down, and the breakdown of those losses based on the disclosure of those companies. And made me nervous first day as we did this, and we estimated the losses. You can stop there. You can go back to the chart above. We estimated the losses at MGM at $98 million for certain factors of risk when it came to business interruption. And when they disclosed it that it was several days later, and I think weeks later, it was at 100 million. So we came in very, very close. And so this is a big statement. This is a big thing to tell the industry you can assess materiality. There are models out there that allow you to do that. The risk benchmark data you can apply to have a good understanding and good ballpark figure on what this means for your company. And so this is not meant to shame companies out there. It's meant to be an example of it can be done. And if you want to help, reach out to the FAIR Institute, reach out to the sponsors who are support the Institute and a technical advisor here to give you a view of how this can be done in your organization. So very momentous thing, and I'm also I want to thank also publicly, Wall Street Journal. You are aware of the news, and you covered us in the news today. That's a major coup for the Wall Street Journal, for the Institute today to be recognized as such. Second thing, another great resource. If we can go back to the presentation, please. Is that we issued yesterday our annual cybersecurity risk report. And we model it after the Verizon DBIR to begin with this year, because many people are familiar with that. And we want to put dollar figures and probability figures to main categories, main risk themes out there. And so that you can start understanding what kind of benchmark, how industry differentiate, how meaningful this can be for your own industry. And we also put as a bonus there, fruit of a research, what the top risks are for your specific industry. So you want to see what the risk scenarios are coming up most often in your industry. Download this resource on the FAIR Institute website and look for that. And again, happy to help there and be a resource in understanding how this can be applied to your own company. With that, I think that's in terms of state of this. As you can see, a very important moment of time for our institute, very ambitious agenda. And this wouldn't be possible without also the support of our partners. And our latest also industry sponsor is EY. So I want to thank you all for listening to me. And I want to invite David Burg here, America's cybersecurity leader for EY, to tell us why they decided to support the institute and what it means for them as well. So thank you.
As you may know, EY is a very large accounting and professional services firm. We operate all around the world, and if we are not auditing a company, a Fortune 500 or a FTSE 1000, we're providing some sort of consulting service to that company, which means we have a great deal of insight into what's happening from a business risk, cyber, technology perspective. Our clients hire us for that reason. They expect us to be able to share insights and experience. So in addition to providing an enormous amount of analysis on the audit side, looking at security programs or transforming cybersecurity programs on the consulting side, we are asked very often to attend board meetings, full board meetings, audit committee meetings. This happens all the time in really all industries all around the world. When I attend these meetings, what I've noticed is that there is no doubt that there is, I would call it an awareness saturation related to cyber and cyber risk. That is to say that every single board member understands the criticality and importance of cyber. There is, however, I think an increasing fatigue relating to cyber, and I think this fatigue can be described as very smart business people who are authorizing management's expenditure of very large amounts of money on cybersecurity programs, but they don't really understand what they're getting for their investment. They don't understand ROI. They don't understand maybe the overarching strategy. They don't understand whether or not the security program is moving fast or fast enough. And I think this is actually an area of growing concern for all of us that are focusing on this space and that operate in this profession. And that's one of the reasons why the partnership with the FAIR Institute and SAFE is important for us at EY, because what we believe is incredibly important is to be able to provide transparency and clarity and understanding into risk, the manifestation of risk, and a company's ability to adequately address that risk, which is why we also believe that it's extremely important to embrace a data-driven approach. It's critical to understand data and evidence in order to be able to quantify cyber risks. And as Nick pointed out, I think it's also very important to be able to do this on a continuous basis. Not one time a year, but on a continuous basis. And the reason we think that's important is that cyber is one of the elements that sits inside of enterprise risk management that is constantly moving, constantly changing, literally every single moment as technology changes. And so we think this relationship is extremely important. And one final comment, I think that Nick's slide, which shows the focus around industry or sector, is also very important. At EY, we're making a significant pivot to make sure that we can go very, very deep in every single industry or sector and be able to describe, as Nick talked about, the specific risk issues that manifest within a sector in order to create security programs that adequately address the real business risks that every business faces, recognizing that there can be and there is uniqueness from an industry or sector perspective. So we really appreciate this partnership again, with the FAIR Institute and with SAFE. And we certainly appreciate the partnership with all of you. This is a problem that we all have to work on and solve together. We really cannot do it apart. So Nick, thank you again, and thank you everyone.